This Radio Control Flying Association. I'm going to show you how to build one of these CombatONE flying wings that we have. This is a low production value video, so be forewarned, there will be errors, there will be mistakes, but you will get a plane out of it if you follow it. So first off, let's talk about what you need to start building the airframe. You can learn how to build this at SLRCFA.com. All you got to do is click on Learn, come down to CombatONE. You can learn all about CombatONE. You can also come down, learn all about it here, and then you can learn CombatONE. Oops, sorry. Tools, material, and budget. We'll put the videos in here. They're not there yet, but they will be by the time you see the video. And anything you need for CombatONE can be located here. If occasionally we do a group buy where we buy a lot of material or parts, you can click on the contact us and see if we're going to do one of those anytime soon. On the About CombatONE page, you have the latest information. You can buy, a lot of the stuff at the dollar store or Walmart, but here's the latest tools, material, and equipment. And this PDF is what we're going to be using to actually make the cuts. So you can actually see how the panels get cut and creased based on the design, and you can print this out. The other thing you can get from that page, and this is real important because you're going to need it, is the rib template. You could just look at the PDF for the design and figure out how to measure it and cut it. That's easy. So when you're going to get ready to print the rib template, you just want to get version 3.1. We haven't changed that in a while. It's just a PDF. This is popping open in my PDF viewer. I'm going to click print, and I can print it here. This is fine, but you'll notice there's not a lot of settings and that kind of stuff. The main thing I want to do is make sure that this setting is at 100%. I don't want it to fit the page. I want it off, and then I'm going to print this thing. Okay, so after you've gone on the website and you've printed out your PDFs, this is what you're going to end up with. This is the cut sheet. It's more for measurement than cutting, actually, but it kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to look for. It indicates Ross foam board. We also use the stuff from Dollar General or Dollar Tree that works really good. In fact, I'm using more of the Dollar Tree stuff than the Ross. The Ross is what we could get at Walmart, but they just have the Elmers now. This kind of gives you an idea what the airplane's going to look like and kind of roughly where things are going to be placed. Not exactly, I'll show you that in the video, but it's kind of how I just kind of think of it, where the spar is going to go, that kind of stuff. And then this is the rib template. Actually, the first page isn't a template at all. It's just a schematic to kind of let you know where the foam is and kind of what the idea is. This is a root rib. That's the only one you're going to use. You don't use any other ribs. There's a spar that runs right here. You're going to notice there's a fold and a fold, a fold and a fold on the top and bottom, so 2 folds each. And that spar goes right here. It's 1.5 inches from the top to the bottom of this rib. And then there's a lot of empty space back here right before the tail, and that's on this too. If you were going to print this, you'd have to print it on a legal paper anyway to print it to scale. So where the rubber meets the road is right here. This is essentially the rib template, and you're going to use just 2 of these on an actual plane, but I print 4 just because it's better use of the space. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you did in fact have scaling turned off. This should be at 100%. So this should be exactly 9 inches front to back. If you don't get a 9-inch measurement to right on the money, then you need to go back and check your PDF viewer printer settings and make sure that you're okay there. All you need to do with this is cut it in half, and then I just use a little bit of spray mount or spray mint. It can be 3M77 or whatever. Spray it on the back and then stick it to a piece of foam and cut it out, and we'll show you how to do that in a bit. All right, so first thing you're going to need to do is glue a lot of stuff. So we have a hot glue gun and lots of glue sticks. I ordered these through Amazon in bulk. You can buy them at your local hardware store. They just cost a little bit more than if you buy a bunch of them. We like this Sure Bonder. I got it at Menards. Only thing I didn't like about it is that this on-off switch tends to get pushed accidentally, so I taped it so it's always on when plugged in. Second thing, you're going to need some scrap for wiping glue, and you're going to make a lot of scrap, so just have a box laying around ready for that. You're going to be doing a lot of taping. I do like a tape gun, but you don't have to have a gun. You can just have one of those tape rolls with a cutoff. You're going to cut a lot, have a good quality knife around. If you are going to make more than one of these, I love this this Cobalt you can get from Lowe's. It retracts, so it's safe, but I use the the snot out of it, but I only use it for airplanes. I don't use it for any house construction projects, just keep it fresh. Plenty of blades. If you want to use just blades without a knife, you can do that. If you want to keep it really, really cheap, you're going to need some stuff to make some marks on your plane, and you're going to need wire cutters to cut the 1mm push rods. You're going to need a straight edge to do some cuts. I actually like this big 4-footer that's extra wide. If you kind of look at it compared to my hand, you can imagine you're cutting down one side on a long cut. I feel a little safer, a little easier to hold it still. And then probably a small one would be a good idea, a little 1-footer or something. You could do some small measurements and cuts. That's kind of the basics. You're going to have something similar to all that. If you want to go beyond that, I, of course, always have a drill and some drill bits because I'm going to need that. I drill small holes, pilot holes for my firewall, a little marker, so I can basically create a starting point for my firewall. And then I made a couple of tools that you won't need unless you're going to use a lot of these. And that's, first of all, a little boring tool that I can actually push down. I got a little piece of wood in the end so it doesn't cut me, but on the other end I've got a little serrated, sharpened edge of about I'm going to say a 1/2 inch piece of brass tube, and that lets me cut push rod holes in the foam by twisting it without it looking real ugly. But you can just cut a square. It's not a big deal. I just make enough of these. I decided I wanted to make one of those. And then the second one, and this one saves me a lot of time. If you're going to make even 2 or 3 of these, I don't know if it would make sense to build one of these, but if you want to make a lot of foam airplanes and you're cutting 45-degree bevels, I made this very dangerous tool. There's blood all over my workbench by setting it down like this, forgetting about it, and then reaching for something and hitting it. So this is actually a piece of oak that's got a little slot where you can slide in the material you want to cut, and it'll cut a 45-degree bevel right on that piece of material. You can kind of look down that shot there and see what it does. Pretty oblique angle on the blade, and a little set screw to make sure it kind of stays in place. So don't need that whatsoever. It just makes it nice if you're going to make, I probably made 30 of these things in other planes as well, so it helps when you're doing large volumes of things. In terms of materials you're going to need, first off, you're going to need 2 sheets of 30 by 20 foam. You can get that from a number of different stores. Do not get the heavy stuff from Walmart. It's, what is it, Elmer's, I believe. It'll make your plane super heavy. We buy this at, I want to say Dollar Tree, and I buy cases of it. If you look over here, you can see I've got multiple colors and lots of different stuff. My recommendation, though, these days is just go with white, and you can paint it. And I'm not going to tell you how to paint it. There's lots of videos for that, but it's a lot easier. Just buy all white, paint it, and then you can also put lights in it, and it glows great at night. Second thing you're going to need is a firewall of some sort. And so all I do is take some 1/8 inch light ply or just scrap ply from a bigger plane that you have, and I cut a 2-inch square. And then the foam itself is 3/16 of an inch thick, so there's a 3/16 border all the way around the back edge of this, and these got glued together with CA. Nothing fancy. I've done all sorts of stuff with 1/4 inch ply and routing it, and like this is the easiest way to do it. And I make a bunch. I have dozens of them, and then eventually they're going to go on the front of a little motor box that looks like this. We'll show you how to build, but that's kind of the idea there. So that's essentially the stuff you're going to need for the build of the airframe. Oh, one more thing. I like to use an old credit card or an old hotel key card for, if you look at it, 8 different control horns for the surfaces. And if you zoom in on this one I did in red, you can kind of see what it looks like. You cut the black lines. Those are huge, thick Sharpie lines. I wouldn't normally do that. It's for visualization only. But the little 3 dots at the top right are where you can put the push rods through. The dashed line along the horizontal there is essentially where the glue line would be, and everything else below that would be embedded in the foam and hot glue. And that little right bevel or angle in red is essentially to cut off enough of it that you can get it up to the hinge line. You get those dots over the hinge line. That's real important if you don't want any differential. So I can cut like 3 of these cards up in 5 minutes and have more push or more control horns than I'll need for quite a while. And then the best thing is when you actually put the push rods into the holes, the way you drill the holes is just take your push rod and chuck it in a drill. You might have to wrap it in tape, or a piece of the push rod you cut off, but you wrap it in tape, and then just the friction of that push rod will bore that hole through exactly the diameter of the push rod. So that's the easiest way to get that done. So the stuff you're going to need to build it, in addition to the 2 sheets of foam, first you need a power plant. We use, with great success, this Turnigy 3536 910 kilovolt motor. We've used other 3536 roughly 910 kilovolt motors. You want to be pretty close. You don't really want to get up into 1,000, at least not with the prop that we recommend. But this works great. You're going to need a 30 amp speed controller. This is a Turnigy. This is pretty much what we use. We buy them in bulk and then, try and use them. But the Turnigy AE 30 amp, that has not failed us. We have had a couple of fail in a crash, but other than that, they don't burn out in flight. When you buy the motor, you're going to get the motor mount, which is real important. Some of the other 3536 motors won't come with a motor mount, the direct drives and whatnot. You're going to need that firewall to mount the motor to, and we talked about that earlier, and that's going on this little motor box that we'll create later. Obviously you need a receiver. This is an old Futaba that I use. I take the packaging off to save weight so I can use it for indoor models, and I just shrink wrap it in some clear shrink wrap. You need 2 servos. They're going to be able to handle the load. Probably, I don't know what these are, like 20-gram servos or something. These are actually our favorite. See if I can get it here in the light so you can see it a little better. So this is a Tower Pro MG91 Metal Gear digital servo. It's maybe overkill for an airplane that you're going to basically crash a lot, almost on purpose. But the last thing we wanted to do is be screwing around with servos that the gears were broken on. I actually use screws to mount the motor that are number 6 1¼ inch drywall screws, and I shoot them in with this gun. And that way, if I actually have a wreck and I have another airframe, I can just throw them in real quick. But you're not going to move servos from one plane to another in 5 minutes. You can use the motor. You can do that with the motor, but you can't do that with the servos. You're going to need a push rod, a couple of them. These are millimeter wire, or close. You can go really with any size you want. You could use 16th. It would be just crazy. But the about 3¼ inch long, and I'm sorry, 3½ inch, 4 inches long. Doesn't have to be exact because we like to use these easy connectors and just tighten them up on the other end. These are actually a lot bigger than the push rods in terms of the holes, but it still works. I don't even use Loctite, but probably should. These things only last about 5 flights if you're flying combat. And here's a picture of the push rods. The control horns. You're going to need 2 of these. I kind of showed you how to draw one of these cards up, but that's what they look like when you're done cutting them literally with scissors. And then you drill that hole by chucking a piece of your push rod material and driving it through. That's it. Last but not least, you do need propellers. We're flying with 11.7s. Basically, these are APC style props, but if you want to buy 11.7 APCs and then break them, you're more than welcome to. We got sick of that. These are probably a little more brittle, so they break more easily, but really, I don't think that matters. If you're going to break a prop, it's going to be a bad landing or a mid-air hit. So the props break no matter how flexible they are, and when you land, all you got to do is make sure you nose up a bit, flare at the end, and you'll never break one with throttle down. So these are a lot cheaper. We buy these in bulk through Value Hobby. We also, I believe, have bought these servos through Value Hobby. We've been buying the motors and the speed controllers through Hobby King. You can get this stuff at your hobby shop or, Power Hobby, anywhere. Wire, same thing. Receiver, I'll let you figure that one out. The material for this is, again, Hobby Shop, or you can even go and buy 1/4 inch thick material at Walmart. Real easy to do. Forgot one thing in the material you'll need a dowel rod. You'll need one that's either 4 foot long, 1/4 inch is fine. This is actually maybe a touch bigger. The diameter isn't super hugely important, but I would say stick to around 1/4 inch. But 4 foot, you can cut it in half and you'll have more than enough to basically make the leading edge on each wing. You can also use scraps of others that you have, but that's pretty much it. You can see that even with all the extra stuff, it's not that much for a build. So we'll start moving on to the actual build itself. I didn't mention this tool earlier, but if you got one, it's great. I wouldn't buy one to build these, but we need to sand the center cord of the wing flat so we can glue them two together. And this just takes, you put the wing basically down, center cord, boom, hit it carefully. You got to be really light touch, and in like, oh gosh, I'm gonna say 3 to 5 seconds, you've got both wings perfectly flat and you can glue them together. So if you got one, great. I wouldn't go buy one unless you think you can use it for something else.